Well, hello there, magic people of the internets. We are back for another episode of Love Beer Radio, doing a little brew-centric one, brewery spotlight again this week. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to say, hey, I'm Matt, and we're here with Joe, and let him kind of throw it out because these are his boys, or his boy right now, plural, in the future, hopefully. So yeah, what's the deal, Joe?
So right now we have Rob, and hopefully at some point Kurt from Road Brewing. How you doing, Rob?
Good. How you doing? Kurt will be with us momentarily. He's just getting it all sorted out on his end, so he should be jumping in the next 5 minutes, I would say.
All right. Cool.
Yeah, doing great, man. Just plugging away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is for anyone watching. We just started like 2 seconds ago. For anyone watching, this is going to be a little bit like our Breaker episode. And I just lost my there it is. So we're gonna just jump right in to how'd you get into brewing, Rob?
Myself personally, always been super interested in it. And towards the end of my time at my undergrad in university, I have a science background, but wasn't really interested in kind of sticking it out in the lab, plugging away, doing whatever labs do. So I wanted to kind of find a different outlet for my science background, and brewing sort of really fit the bill for me. And I was fortunate enough to get on with one of the top 3 brewers up here in terms of volume in Canada, Sleeman Breweries, if you've heard of them.
Oh yeah.
Got my background there. Got my foot in the door, let's say. As kind of a quality assurance technician. It's kind of where I started way back when, about 10 or 12 years ago now. And
so before were they Unibrew then?
You know what? They were just in the process of acquiring Unibrew.
And it was before Sapporo, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
Okay.
That is correct. So they had just acquired Unibrew, which is kind of cool, and it started as a summer job for me, so kind of plugged away in there for a summer, just on the packaging side, and then got onto the analytical, so testing all the beer, and then that went really well. Came back the following summer doing the same thing, and from there that turned into a full-time job. And then at that point, being quite the established brewery, there wasn't a lot of brewing jobs coming up, which is what I really wanted to do. And so decided at that point to go back to school to pursue further brewing education. So from there, actually talked to the brewmaster at the time of Unibrew. He's since moved on, but he's a former Harriet Watt grad. And from there, I found out about Harriet Watt in Edinburgh, Scotland, one of the brewing programs out there that you can go to. And at that point, pursued it. Did all the applications, got all the references, did all the legwork, applied, and then got in. And from there, that's when I ended up meeting Curtis. And from there, we started we didn't know it was going to be High Road back then, but just kind of discussing our philosophies and thoughts on beer, and we were able to find some synergies. And from there, I guess 7 or 8 years ago, we finally got our own brewery off the ground, little contract brewing operation that's now High Road. So, and then all the while, obviously, I'm sure as you guys are, we're massive home brewing fans, and we've been doing it quite a while. And if you talk to Curtis today, he's home brewing. So.
Now the High Road.
Right,
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yep. Perfect.
All right. Cool.
It's High Road, the name. Any specific thing, or just kind of settle on it, or was there a catalyst for the name, or?
I think we kind of just over and over we were kind of trying to think of something that was that we liked, and initially we went, we thought of some that we thought were clever, and some that were plain, and eventually we just sort of settled on High Road being sort of as kind of like a brewing philosophy in a way. Not so much like the moral route, but more like the maybe not the easiest route, but sometimes things are more difficult, but they're worth it. I think that's kind of the way we look at it, basically. And so High Road for us was kind of just, it wasn't one of these overly clever names. It was just sort of, we thought it represented us fairly well.
Nice.
So you guys, like, where, apart from doing High Road, where have you worked before?
Go ahead, Kurt.
So,
Yeah, go ahead, man.
wants to start?
Well, I started a long time ago. I guess for me, it feels like a long time ago. At King Brewery up in Nobleton. I actually started out just volunteering there. I spoke to the brewmaster there at the time, Phil, and I told him I was interested in getting into brewing, and I was looking for a job. And he told me that he couldn't pay me, but that I could come in a few days a week and volunteer if I wanted. So I did that. And not long after that, I went to Harriet Watt, where I met Rob. And after that, I worked in New Zealand at a brewery in Christchurch, New Zealand, called Three Boys Brewery for a couple of years down there. My wife's from Australia, so New Zealand seemed like an interesting option. We were, I was still in my 20s at the time, and we wanted to kind of do a little bit of traveling and work at the same time. So, I worked down there as a small 20 hectoliter brew house. I had six different brands. Really fun place to work. I really enjoyed my time there. Unfortunately, we had some earthquakes there, which did some damage to the brewery at the time. We decided to come home after that. And then I went on to Mill Street for a number of years with Rob. And that brings us to now. I finished at Mill Street just at the beginning of the summer in order to try and pursue High Road. That's basically it up to now.
Nice. And where are you guys at now as far as like production? Like, where's your beer available? Like, what's going on with that? Like, how big of an operation now?
We kind of started off really small. So our current situation is we're contracting space out of Niagara College, where Joe is currently working his way through the brewmaster program. It was a big appeal for us to kind of work with the college and the students in order to kind of bring High Road to life, let's say. That's kind of gone now from one sort of 500-liter batch, or 5-barrel batch, let's say, if this is down in the States there. So let's call it 5 barrels. Kind of once every sort of 5 to 6 weeks. That's now within kind of a month, we're kind of up to 5 barrels every 3 weeks, and then we've just recently just doing a 5-barrel batch every 2 weeks. So for us, we couldn't be happier. It's been kind of slow and steady, and we've gotten some good response up here, up in mainly Toronto and GTA markets. So for us, we couldn't be happier. We're just trying to get into obviously kind of trendier bars that really care about their craft beer. I'm sure, as we all know, that you're not going to compete against any of the bigger guys, even bigger craft guys at this point for us. So we kind of compete on quality and flavor, and we hope craft beer drinkers kind of dig us, enjoy us, and support us, let's say.
No bottles yet. Pretty much just all kegs and pubs and shit.
And that's it. Yeah, man. It's straight. We just have 20 and 30-liter kegs, and we're trying to build our bar customers, let's say.
Nice. What's do you guys have like a, I don't want to say flagship beer, but a specific style, or are you all over the place?
You want to answer that one, Kurt?
Sure. I mean, at the moment, we only just started in May, or end of April, beginning of May, selling beer for the first time now. So we're very new. We only have one beer out, and that is it's an American IPA. When we first released it, we kind of labeled it as like a Vermont style IPA, even though Vermont style is not a technical category or anything in BJCP guidelines or anything like that. We kind of feel that it's without a doubt different from like a West Coast style IPA. They taste slightly different in my mind, anyways.
That's
what we were trying to do.
It's a style now. Like even though it's not BJCP, people know what it is.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
there's even like
in
styles
Ontario,
that people have never friggin' heard of that are apparently a thing. Like yesterday, I was over at Ian's, and apparently West Coast Pilsner is a thing. I didn't know that. That doesn't sound like anything, but apparently it's
I haven't heard that yet, but sure,
Yeah.
sure it exists.
Yeah. So for us, it was kind of like we'd had some of these beers from Vermont that we really enjoyed. They weren't like anything that we'd had previously, and so we kind of just tried to emulate that style, and we kind of felt like we had a really good beer. And with being as small as we are and producing the volume that we do, we wanted something that we felt would grab some attention to kind of kickstart us going. And so far, I mean, it seems to be working. I mean, each batch seems to sell out faster than the previous one. And people, we get a lot of positive feedback. At bars, people seem to like it. So we're pretty happy. We're always going to keep tinkering, and we'll keep trying to make things. We're never satisfied. It can always be better, but we're pretty happy with where it is at the moment.
So, I mean, Vermont style, I assume it looks somewhere between like urine and butternut squash, somewhere is butternut squash soup, and so it's like super hazy, super neon, super whatever. What's in it? Like, what do you guys use hop wise? What do you guys use like malt bill? Like, what's the deal?
I should have warned you about Matt before we started.
No.
But that's what Vermont IPAs look like. They literally look like you haven't drank water in 5 days, or you are getting a thin butternut squash soup. That's pretty much how.
It does look like that a bit.
Yeah. You're not far off, that's for sure. My piss smelled like hops like that. I'd be pretty impressed, to be honest.
I know.
I guess like malt bill wise, we played around with that. We kind of, I don't know, like for a while there, we were really going toward the lighter colored IPAs, like just not a whole lot of caramel malt character or anything like that. Letting the hops kind of showcase themselves. And I think so. Kind of, we settled on like a base malt of a split between Pilsner and Maris Otter, because we kind of didn't want it to be as light as an all Pils malt, like base malt, but not quite the same amount of that you're going to get out of a Maris Otter either. Something in the middle.
Okay.
There's no caramel malt in it at all. There's a bit of wheat, a bit of acidulated malt, just for
Body and stuff.
Happy.
Yeah.
And then hop-wise, we use Amarillo, Simcoe, Citra, and Chinook.
Nice.
So some of those are, we wish, I think in the original version, we probably had a little more Simcoe than it has now, and that's strictly because it's hard to find, it's hard to get. But we ended up dialing it back a little bit, but it ended up being, we were very happy with how it turned out with the amount of Simcoe that's in it now. So, initially, I think Simcoe is one of those ones that everybody's like thinks it's you got to have, and it is definitely a great hop. But we seem to be we're pretty happy with how it is now.
Yeah. And Citra's fucking blowing up, especially in the Vermont areas. I mean, that's like everybody's fucking going crazy with Citra hop stuff. So
Citra's dynamite. I think for Kurt and I talk about this all the time. It's all those hops are dynamite, but I think Kurt and I think a bit more like, okay, if we want to achieve like a certain sort of hop flavor profile or aroma profile, is there a way to build that profile using like multiple different kinds of hops? And then that kind of serves two purposes. Just like Kurt was saying about the Simcoe, if it's tough to get, well then, maybe you can think about blends of other things to kind of get that note, right? And sometimes, most times it's actually really difficult to do, but It's something Kurt and I are kind of constantly thinking about and discussing when we're, brewing up kind of our next sort of pilot batches. Just, if we do this, what happens? If we do that, what happens? And then, put it, lock it away in the old brain and bring it back out when you need it, sort of thing,
Is that the most frustrating thing, like procuring hops? Like you get a recipe dialed in, and you're like, you want this, but you just can't get it, so you have to kind of be forced to adjust.
It's an absolute challenge. I'm not going to deny that. But as far as Kurt and I are concerned, we welcome the challenge. It's tough for us to get the hops we want, that's for sure. But for us, it's a fun hurdle because you get to plug away and and you get to kind of make new beers and see if you can work around, right? So it speaks to just the challenge of brewing. Ask any brewer. I'm sure they love that challenge. They love to kind of figure that out, and Kurt and I are no different that way.
It's I would imagine it's as a brewer, it has to be kind of like almost like a frustration, but at the same time a positive, because you want to make good beer, but if the hops aren't available, that means everybody's doing the same fucking thing. So kind of forces you to dip your toes in a little bit uncharted water and come up maybe with something a little bit different, which is probably a good fucking thing in the end.
I couldn't agree more with that point. Couldn't agree more.
Nice.
I like I like that kind of forced. If things are too easy, you're not pushing yourself hard enough.
Yeah.
I think we're forced to experiment. And sometimes you put something in and you think, well, I don't know if I'm going to like this as much as I'd rather use this other hop, but this will have to suffice for now. And and then sometimes it turns out even better or something. You know what I mean? It's not a perfect science. And sometimes just because something smells amazing in the bag doesn't mean it will smell amazing later on. Usually does, but it's not a perfect science. So we kind of like to play around. I think what we've been doing lately, like a long time ago when we were kind of more just doing it for fun, which we still do, of course. We really enjoy homebrewing and that side of it. Like that's sort of a fun day for us. But we used to do it sort of just like, well, what are we going to make this time? And it would be something different every time. And lately, the last maybe year or so, we're kind of like we lock in on one style that we want to make, and then we just make that like 6, 7, 8 times, whatever, like over and over and over again. Because when you when you're going from one thing to another, you kind of forget like what was good about one batch or what was. I mean, if you have really really good notes, I suppose, and you can go back and review those notes, would be fine. But for us, I think we just make one after another, and you just keep tinkering until we kind of lock in on something that we're really happy with. So that's sort of how we did it with Ronan. We just kept making it over and over and over again, and then until we were finally we were really really happy with what we were getting. And then then when we took it up to a bigger scale, we were a little bit concerned. Obviously, anytime you change the scale of brewing from sauce or fermenters or whatever, your results don't always turn out exactly the same. So we were very concerned initially, with our very first batch. We were crossing our fingers that this was going to turn out how we wanted, and in fact, I think turned out better than we expected. So that was a real bonus.
Nice.
Now, when you guys are doing like a pilot batch, like how big are the what volume are you guys doing for like a pilot?
They're just we can either do 25 liters or 35 liters.
Okay.
And we could do like a double brew. We could make more if we like, but generally I have here a fermenter that handles a 35-liter batch really well. Gives us, we could probably up it a little bit, but that gives us good headspace in the fermenter. And then we've got a couple of smaller fermenters that will do a 25-liter batch, and just kind of funny because those are a little bit different than the typical, 5-gallon batch size for homebrewers. And the only reason that was is because when I first started doing that, you'd always end up with like a corny keg with like 16 or 17 liters in it, which used to drive me nuts. I wanted it to be full. So we simply just made 25 liters, so that like with all the losses you'd get a full keg. So that's the only reason why they're those numbers.
That's funny.
Have you guys ever had a batch, you thought it was going to be you thought it was going to go one way, and then it finishes, and it's completely different than what you were expecting it to be?
Well, I think actually recently, Kurt, we did. I mean, guys, we recently did some. I think we were working. We're currently working on dialing in a saison right now. But before that, we were working on an American wheat, and I think we one-offed an American wheat, and it was absolutely phenomenal. And we're like, and it was one of those things. It was just a fun day. We did one. We're like, oh, we should try that, and we were really pleased with the results. And then came back to it maybe, I don't know, a couple months later, and made about, I think, 2 or 3 of them, and just not even close to where they should have been compared to, like, at least in our mind's eye with that first one we made. So we just kind of gave up on it and went over to the saison, and we've been plugging away at that for a while now. But it's and we couldn't figure out why. Like, there's nothing bad about the American wheat we did. Like, I've got it on my kegerator right now, but it's just not popping, and we're not going to put it out there if it's not, like, jumping off sort of thing, Yeah. And it's unfortunate because it's a dynamite style, but yeah, it just didn't work out. So we'll revisit it again, but probably
Take a breather on it.
yeah.
You see, it's sometimes you got to step away before you want to break shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll drink through it and try again next year. But yeah, no.
Have you guys done any?
Go ahead,
have you
Joe.
done any other beers over at the school yet, or are you just primarily brewing Bronin over there?
We're primarily doing Bronan for now. Kurt and I always, we're trying to figure out, like I said, the next sort of beer to drop. I think we're, at least in our heads, we'll probably do another 2 to 3 more batches, and then look to drop something probably around Canadian Thanksgiving, which is second week of October for you guys. And then, but we haven't decided, like, we haven't set what that beer is going to be yet, which is, we need to do a few more homebrew sessions before we decide.
I think Tanner had a recipe for, like, a Thanksgiving beer that you could, like,
Yeah.
or something like that. You could pick his brain about that one.
Yeah, I'll shoot him a text and see what's up.
Apologize, guys. I will be back in 1 minute. My
no
battery
problem.
Yeah,
computer's
go ahead.
about to die. Story of my life. I'll be back in 1 second.
All right.
Now, do you guys, like, working in a college, like, I'm sure there's positives, huge positives to working there. Like, do you feel like that's, like, it's helped you immensely get your shit together, having that kind of resources, working? Because, I mean, contract brewing, but there's also contract brewing in a teaching environment. Do you think it's been super positive, or has it been kind of a little bit of both?
You know what? I think it's been super positive. I couldn't. Our relationship with Niagara College and the brewing program and the students there, just the whole community involved with, just kind of being down there. They've been great. So they've been very helpful to us, very accommodating in terms of, just day-to-day random brewing stuff that happens, like doing a tank transfer, or, this transfer has to happen before that happens, or we get this into the bright before this goes into the bright. And, as long as we're kind of always in conversation and talking to them, like, we haven't had any issues in terms of, like, day-to-day brewing operations. And then on the total kind of student flip side, it's, we're kind of doing stuff that, students have been really, they've given us a great reaction, Joe included, and we're happy to kind of, share some of the stuff we've learned, and, okay, why are you guys doing this? And, well, this is why. And then, who are you interested in terms of, like, cool breweries coming out of the States or up here in Canada, or, there's so much culture around the college for beer. It's quite the hub, and it's I have a lot of fun down there, I'm always kind of, have you checked this out? Have you checked that out, right? And just kind of being around that every day is great, right? Not that I wasn't before, but it's nice to be around a collective of people that have those similar interests, I love that about it.
Have you ever thought about doing like one of your like a newer style for you guys, like over on the pilot systems?
I know we talked about it earlier, but I don't know. We've kind of Kurt's got that. Kurt essentially put a pilot system up in his garage where he's at, and then so realistically, Joe, in our heads, or at least talking to the school, like those pilot systems are for you guys and your creativity.
Yeah.
I know the school sometimes is looking for recipes here or there, but I'd rather have kind of you guys doing something, right? So we have our pilot as our kind of quote unquote research brewery. We've talked about it for maybe some special events, but right now there's no plans for the pilot side down there for us. That could change, but
my dogs don't appreciate that, though. I'll tell you that much.
So what were any you guys are super new, really small. What were some troubles that you had, like just getting your name out there?
God, it's actually, it's a pretty funny story. When we started firing up all our social media, it's quite a challenge to stay on top of that stuff. But I think there was some homebrewing guy in the States that had our brewing name, and we were kind of pretty frustrated with that. But it hasn't been an issue or anything, right? So just kind of getting all our friends and family kind of hitting up our page to get the numbers up usually kind of really helps and stuff like that, and it's that's kind of how we went about that. In terms of getting our name out further afield into the marketplace, it's a challenge always. Again, like anything, but we feel our beer speaks for itself, and it's kind of our best marketing tool. If we can build a relationship or get on tap or get on a rotating tap at a bar in Toronto or down in Hamilton or down in the Niagara area, we feel if we can get on tap and we can get a few people to try it, then usually that's kind of the best marketing we can do, and that's really the only way we're going to get our name out there before we can kind of take things to the next level.
Yeah. I think some bars, we originally had a list of the first places we had in mind that we would like to give samples to and everything. And we thought, okay, well, we're going to give them samples, and any craft beer bar is going to like to try something they've never had before. That's kind of their MO. And for some of them, that I would say that's completely true. And for some of them, I guess I anticipated they'd all be like that. I thought the sales side, this side of the business was going to be easier than it is, and it's certainly not. You try to put yourself in the shoes of a bar manager or something. Like if they have to buy a beer off of an unknown brewery they've never heard of, that's a risk for them, which I understand better now than I did prior to us starting this up. But like Rob said, I think that we're pretty confident that the beer is good. Most places that we sell to, pretty much all of them have had repeat orders. They tell us it sells really well, and like Rob said, I think that you kind of get a word of mouth thing going there, which is kind of what we really need to happen for us, because we do at the moment, anyways. We don't have a massive budget for marketing and things like that, and we're not marketing experts. We just kind of know that good products usually sell themselves if it's good, and I think that's how we approach all the beers that we try to make. When we make one, we don't sit there and analyze every little component. One of the main components to analyze is there's no number to give you there's a number for BUs, and there's a number for alcohol, and there's a number for all these things that you can quantify, but you can't number that's most important is, would I want to drink more of these, or would I drink 2 or 3 pints of this at a bar, or would I have one and then want to walk away? That's kind of like, I think that any beer that we want to put out there has to pass that test of, do I want a second one at the very least? We've entered a number of beers into the National Homebrew Competition in the U.S., and there's the score sheets they give you are loaded full of different boxes to check and everything. But at the bottom there is a section, that says, I liked it, but I would finish this pint, or I wouldn't finish this pint, or I would buy this beer, or send me the recipe. And I think that, unless it at minimum says I would buy this beer, then that's not a pass in our mind. So that's kind of what we're going for. We need to have that box checked that somebody wants to go out and buy that beer and buy it over and over again. Without that, then I think it wouldn't be a success.
Now, do you guys hit social media really hard with your stuff? Because, you're talking about you don't have a huge marketing budget, so when that usually is the case, you can utilize social media to your benefit. Do you do a lot of that, or you just kind of just rest your laurels on your product itself?
I'd say we're slowly getting better with the whole social media thing and doing a better job in that regard. We're primarily focused on our beer. That's what we do. All the other aspects of trying to develop a business it's almost a vertical learning curve across the board. So getting out there, doing sales, maintaining your social media, building awareness through those avenues, really tough. Maintaining relationships once you do sell a keg to a bar is another super important thing that I think, like Kurt said, I was like, totally took that for granted. And, it's tough, man. Like, even if your beer is great, that's kind of in our head, that's kind of that's a given. You have to have that. And then as you kind of move forward, are you, okay, you have great beer. Well, are you doing a great job doing sales? Are you constantly, checking in on your customers? Are you maintaining that social media tight? Are you putting word out there, like, check this out, we're at this bar, et cetera, right? So, we endeavor to do better on that. I think there's room for improvement for us in that regard, especially given the fact that we're just kind of a brand new operation, right? So, and again, for us, it's kind of picking and choosing, we're not really doing too many events right now. A lot of that has to do with legalities up here. But the ones that we do want to get involved in, we want to get kind of maximum exposure, let's say, right? So, there's a big event coming up in October, kind of a cask festival called Cask Days, and we're hoping to kind of get into that. We're in the process of talking with them right now, just trying to set that up. So that would be a great event for us, as people love their cask beer. At least it's an event that's gotten really popular over the last kind of 3 to 5 years up here in Toronto area, and
down here too. It's pretty. Yeah. It's big, getting huge everywhere.
Right, and it's really nice to see. Like, it's cask beer's dynamite. So I think we'd like to hop on that, and then something as simple as that, where we can go there, we can give them those casks, customers can pay their tokens and try it. Just the exposure from that would kind of do wonders for us, and so in terms of that, that's kind of, strategically, that's, how we kind of look at it. Well, we can't do every event in the world, there's no way, but, we can do maybe like a few strategic ones to really help it out,
Yeah. Is getting your beer or playing that fucking sleazy fucking tap handle game, is that fucking like the most frustrating part of sales? Because, like, if I was gonna, like, from an outsider, because I'm not a brewer or that sells the bars, but I've heard just there's such limited tap handle space. Some might be a little bit of a fucking, like, it sucks sometimes to deal with bar owners. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they want their ego stroked. They want, you know what I mean? They want to be like, oh, you want your beer on my place. It's almost like a used car salesman kind of environment. And, is that the worst part of it?
It's
Has there ever been like a bar that just has not given you guys the time of day? Like you go in there trying to give them a sample, and they're just like, "Oh, here's these
definitely.
guys."
We've had a few that we're not going to name any, obviously, but
obviously.
we've had a few that we've given samples to multiple times, and we've emailed them multiple times, and but we never hear back. And I mean, that is a bit discouraging, especially at the start. But now we're starting to hear back from more and more places, so it's kind of getting rolling off a little easier now. But we'll keep plugging away. We'll go back to those places, and until they tell us to go away, then we'll keep giving them samples, and hopefully someday they'll get back to us. But for now, given the volume we make as well, we've got a good number of customers. We're pretty happy with.
Right.
We always want to add more, but I mean, if we doubled our number of customers tomorrow, let's say, then we'd have to double our brewing too. So yeah, but dealing with that is definitely the most difficult part, I think, so far.
Yeah, it's and not to crap on bars, but like if you're doing a good job as a barman and you've got a busy establishment where you're turning the kegs over pretty quick, you've got a following for your bar, and that holds some clout, especially in the brew game, right? So, why should I put you on tap when what I have on tap's moving like crazy anyway? And so there's a million different reasons, right? And dealing with the big guys or muscling their way in and paying for taps, again, it's
that's highly illegal. That would never happen.
It is what it is, right? So
was sarcasm.
Yeah. Accept the fact it happens and work around it. It's not it's not something, Kurt and I, we want our beer to kind of speak for itself, and I don't think that'll ever change for us. And we're kind of hoping by growing it slowly, we can slowly spread the word. But yeah, it's a battle. There's no question about it. Yeah.
And I would imagine that's more frustrating, like dealing with that, dealing with the seedy bartender or the seedy bar owner who's like, oh, I can put your stuff on, and, as long as you, do this, rub my back, I rub yours, as opposed to a guy who doesn't call you back and be like, no, I'm not interested. That's fine. Be like, if someone's not interested, it sucks. I wish you were, but it's probably way easier to deal with than that kind of shisty fucking like backdoor dealer guy.
I'll say yes to that. Like, at least you're getting a response. If if you're dealing with a guy who's like, I could use a new fridge, or I could use a new this or that or the other thing, and all right, man, great.
We don't have anything to other than beer. we kind of tell places that sometimes.
If you can use a new IPA on tap, we can help you out. Otherwise, we can't really help you out.
And if you're kind of maybe hypothetically a vindictive person, you keep a list of those bar owners. So when your beer comes really popular and they want it, you go, hey man, I can use a new car. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is all hypothetical. This is very, very, very.
Shocks are hurting these days. I'm carrying all these kegs around in my car, so shocks. You could hook me up.
Yeah. Cover all these.
We don't have any of the extras, and that's not to say that there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if a bigger brewery has that at their disposal to use to get themselves more sales, that's great. Good for them. But we don't have like any sort of umbrellas or anything like that. Obviously, at this stage, we do have tap handles, but we make those ourselves. So we don't buy those. And we have some glassware, but we got the minimum order, just for any places that want glassware. But pretty much other than tap handles and glassware, we have beer. That's pretty much.
Hey, beer is good, so as long as you have that, then life is good.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
yo, dude, sorry, Kurt, you should tell them about that beer you're making right now.
I've actually got to go in about 8 minutes to add some hops. It's actually an all Brett IPA.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah. I read through that the American Sours book, which I thought was an excellent book. Whether you like sours or not, there's tons of interesting information in there. So I'll give that I don't, I've got nothing to do with that guy or anything. I just thought it was an awesome book. So I'll throw that one out there.
Are you going for like something that you're using Brett? Are you going for something more sour, or are you going something more funky? Like, what do you, or you have no idea?
To be honest, I don't know. From reading this book, and the reading I've done, I'd never used Brett in this way before. It's my understanding that if you have a good pitch rate and everything of Brett to start, you get a totally different character than finishing with Brett. If you do a full Brett fermentation, and I made a starter on the stir plate, 3-liter starter, and that's just under a gallon. And the smell was awesome. Like, it didn't smell anything like the typical Brett character, that you think of. It was really fruity, and it was pretty cool. It smelled really good. So I'm gonna whale it in there and see what happens.
Yeah, baby.
But yeah, it's kind of, for us, we're kind of notorious for that. We don't. Whenever we're kind of thinking of a new recipe, it's okay. Let's just try this and see what's up, and from there, if we like it, we'll try it again. And for the first few brews, we don't really have a destination. We're just kind of following what we think is cool, or what we dig, what we like, and then from there we'll start, tweaking one or two things, and then eventually we end up where, at the end of the day, where the beer can speak for itself. And that's, I think it's, what Kurt's kind of getting at is, like, we're doing this. The Brett thing is something, like, we haven't done a lot of or at all, and it's something we're super interested in, and we got some time. Let's do it. Let's see what happens, and then we can go from there, right? And initially, it's doing brews to kind of gain that perspective and understanding about that beer or that yeast or whatever the case is, right? And then from there, we can kind of dial it in, let's say.
Yeah, you can read, all day and night, till the cows come home, but until you actually do it, then you don't really know. Can't say, I don't know. It doesn't replace experience. So sometimes, we try to keep up to date with what's going on, with new beer styles and all these types of things, and so we just like to try different things, and sometimes things turn out and sometimes they don't, but that's all kind of part of the fun of it. I think we really try to maintain, it's a job for us now, but we want to have fun also. Like, we got into this business because we like making beer, and so we try to keep it fun.
Well, like you said, nothing really trumps experience, but if you don't do it, you're never gonna fucking have the experience. So you gotta fucking do it to get that experience. So even though you gotta do what you gotta fucking do, and like you said, some beers are almost like I don't know how to say it. There's happy mistakes. So even if you're making a beer and it doesn't come out the way you want, you know what I mean? You might stumble onto something. Not that you always want to have your calculated beer exactly the way you want it to be, but sometimes it doesn't come out the way you want it, and that's not a bad thing. So
no,
and that's it. And sorry, go ahead, Kurt.
No, I was just gonna say, that's the only way you really know. You learn from your past experience, and the funny thing about beer, I always think, is like, compared to, say, like cooking, right? Like, cooking, you sit there in your kitchen and you make something, and then you get to taste the result not long after you've made it. So you could say, oh, wow, that had too much salt, or that had too much whatever. But with brewing, you got to sit there and wait, right? There's no better example of that than, like, sours and things like that. You have to wait years, before you know how it turned out. So it's difficult to get good at those things, unless you do it a lot. So we kind of just try to repeat, and get better.
Have you guys ever had like a super disaster while brewing, or at the same time, or like a super letdown? Like, you had a beer and you were fucking absolutely positive it was going to be fucking cash fucking money. When you drank it, you're like, fuck my life.
I'll, the one that springs to mind for me was, Kurt. When do we make that, that like Apocalypse Cow? Ages ago now.
Which we found out later that Three Floyds has a beer called Apocalypse Cow.
Yeah. We thought we were. We thought we were fucking geniuses coming up with this name, and and we brew it, and it was it's one of those beers that I think we did it on winter equinox night or whatever.
We did it on December 21st, 2012, like the Mayan calendar, the end of the world.
Yeah.
The Mayan concopolis or whatever. Mayan apocalypse. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the marketing lined up amazing for this homebrew, so we had to do it and brewed it, let it ferment out, tasted it, and we're just like, okay, what the hell was that? That was insanely bad.
What was it supposed to be?
I can't even remember at this point.
Imperial milk.
It's like regressed memories. Like you got touched as a child. You're like, I don't even remember what it was, man. It was that bad. It's back here. I'm sure in the future when I'm talking to a psychiatrist, I'll bring it back up. But it's shoved way back there.
That's awesome. You know what?
It was an imperial milk stout, and what happened was I can recall this. We were having a few pops as well. We were having fun, which is why it's a pretty good memory for me, even though the beer didn't turn out how we wanted. And I remember us sitting there taking a pre-boil gravity, and we looked at the pre-boil gravity and we thought, well, this isn't going to be high enough.
Yeah. Not imperial enough.
Yeah, it's not imperial enough. And so I said, oh well, I guess I got some more lactose sitting there. We'll just throw that in. And I mean,
that's what I was going to ask. Did it go sour? Or did just a lactose get away from you on it?
No, it didn't ferment out as much as we liked. It didn't go sour.
Yeah.
And it had some coffee in it. And where we used to work, they do a coffee beer there. It's quite good. But the coffee that they throw into the whirl goes in like a bag form, sort of, so it doesn't just go everywhere.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't factor that in when we did the coffee. We kind of utilized. We just kind of threw the coffee in, and so obviously it gets way more. The word's escaping me, but you know what I mean. Better contact here. And so we had way more coffee character than we had intended. It was like coffee, I don't know, like chocolate milk but with coffee in it.
Be like, hey, let's make coffee with some beer characteristics, more like a beer with a little bit of coffee going on.
Anyways, it was a disaster, and then true to form for us, we're getting a little bit better at this now, but we didn't throw it out. We didn't dump it. We just let it go and age. And I think, I don't know if you still have it, Kurt, but we tried it like a year later, and then like a year and a half later, and for as I don't know, crappy as it was when it first was finished, as it mellowed out, it actually came around a bit, and we were actually pretty surprised by it. Not that we would. It's weird, man. Those beers do well with a bit of time on them, and this one was no different. So you kind of came back where the coffee mellowed out a bit. There's kind of malty chocolate notes kind of came forward. The toast note came forward, and it didn't turn out as bad as we initially thought it was going to turn out, and as
you're talking to a certified aged beer junkie, so I mean, hey, time heals all wounds if it's not accidentally soured. You know what I mean?
Right.
But,
right.
The coffee will drop out, especially if there's too much in there, and just let it sit for another. I don't know. What was the ABV? What it ended up at approximately?
I don't even remember.
I think it was like 9.
9. It's good for 10 years.
Yeah.
Let's sit for like another 5 years.
Yeah, no, it was one of those beers that you're like, this is a hot mess, and then it just it turned around, turned a corner and chilled out a bit. So pretty funny.
I mean, it was still for me, it was a little sweet, but the coffee definitely mellowed out and was nice after a while.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm really interested in trying it now. Like from you guys talking about it, like I really want to try this beer now.
Dude,
see
you
if
have
I
to come up. Have to come up for a homebrew session.
Yeah,
There
right.
you go.
That's awesome. But yeah, I know it's for us farting around in the little garage pilot brewery we have is we're not lately obviously just trying to get the high road stuff rolling. We don't have as much time anymore, but whenever we do whenever we can book out like a solid brew day, we're usually pretty excited about that. So Kurt's fitting one in today. I wish I was there right now, but we're not in the cards for me today. So
Now, what turned you guys on to beer? Like, what's your gateway beer? Like, what where you're like, oh my fuck, what the fuck? I'm drinking this thing. Like, you guys have like a particular beer or style that like gets your man parts tingling, or is it just like beer in general?
For me, when I first got into it, like I'm sure most people, you're just drinking, whatever to get blasted,
Yeah.
And then slowly, if you care to take it beyond that, then you kind of can get into other beers. My first foray into something other than like light lagers, let's say, I kind of got into the Belgian styles quite a bit.
Yeah, baby.
Not different from anyone else, really. I'm sure it's one of the first kind of places where people go. But for me, the one that stands out in my mind, for all the Canadian beer fans out there, is Fin du Monde by Unibrew at the time.
Yeah.
I still love that beer. I think it's phenomenal. But for me, that's the one one that kind of really got me super interested in like how the hell are they doing this sort of thing, right? And I've always been a fan of those guys and what they do.
Unibrew was my gateway beer for me too.
Yeah, right on.
Unibrew
man.
was Unibrew Maudit. I remember. It was
Maudit's amazing as well.
Yeah, it was. I think it was like 1999. I think I went to Toronto.
Right.
And up to that point, I just had whatever. And a friend of mine was like, I've never been to Canada before, and I'm like, with her, and I'm like, yeah, I want some beer, and he's like, I'll take you, and he's like from Toronto, and he takes me to the beer store. I'm like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, and I go there, and then I'm like, he's like, what's good? And he's like, I like this beer. So I got a case of Maudit, and I continued. I went back. It was a barbecue I was going to up in Toronto, and I drank 10 of them. and then I woke up I woke up the next day, and I was like, why?
In the States.
Yeah, I woke up in a dumpster in Cincinnati. No, I woke up. I was like, first thought that popped in my head when I drank it, I was like, okay, why the fuck am I not drinking this? And then when I woke up the next day, I'm like, why the fuck did I drink that? But then I went, wait a minute, that was pretty good. And then I came back, and that was my introduction into how I got into beer. And then I went through the Belgian door from that. You know what I mean?
So that's, I basically did the same thing, and then pretty sure, like, I also got into the hop beers, and, definitely a hophead now. But, like, I love all styles. At this point, like, if you're not tasting all styles, then you're missing out. So, but yeah, the Belgian
except for
stuff.
smoked beers. Smoked beers can go suck themselves off.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll try to make one.
Yeah, just make one, bottle it, and I'll bring it back.
All right,
I'll bring it back home with me and just give it all to Matt.
I'm joking. I like all styles. Smoked beers are a rough one for me. I can't get it. I can't dial it in.
You know what? They're hard to do properly. How about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for everybody, I don't think.
How about I lost my train of thought. Joe, talk.
So do you guys have a favorite style that you like to brew? Like, is there something that when a brew day comes, we're gonna try doing another one of this?
Yeah, I mean, like, whatever's easiest, I guess. We have like I guess it's kind of a pale ale or a golden ale or something that we have with Nelson Sauvin in it. One of the beers actually we'd probably like to make.
Yeah,
we could, but Nelson's very difficult to get your hands on. And it's just super simple, recipe, like basically like one hop addition. And it turns out really good every time. So
yeah,
For us, I mean, that's an easy brew day. I mean, I shouldn't say that. Other days, like where you're doing something exciting and there's a lot of hops and all that, that's fun too. But sometimes the easy brew days, I guess when you make it over and over and over and over again, the easy days sometimes are appreciated, I guess.
Yeah, no, even for beers as well. As the more you brew and the more you get into it, it's awesome to have a beer with like a zillion million hops in it, 20 additions, just go crazy. And then you step back and you do something super simple where it's one or two malts and one hop addition with one, Nelson for what Kurt was talking about, and you sit back and let that beer do its thing, ferment out, age a bit, and it's just phenomenal. And you get a new appreciation for stuff like that,
Yeah,
just like,
you don't have to reinvent the wheel,
yeah, exactly.
It doesn't have to be complicated for it to be good.
Yeah.
I think that's we like those beers that are not complicated, but turn out really well.
Yeah. And
well,
so
look at that, like that Galaxy IPA that I brought up.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the simplest beers that I've brewed. I brew a lot of like real high alcohol beers, so I'm like maxing out my cooler mash tun almost every single time.
Right.
And this one is just like, oh, it's just Maris Otter, honey, all Galaxy, done.
Yeah. And bang, it's fantastic, right? And you're just you sit back after you've kind of ripped off a few of those, and you're like, all right, like I'm like, it just adds to your kind of perspective a bit, and you're like, it doesn't have to be insane every time to make cool beer. It just doesn't.
Yeah. And your yeast obviously is like can make massive difference in the character of the beer, like regardless of all the other ingredients. The yeast is huge, and so sometimes you can get all these other like little esters going on and everything, and you go like people would say, well, what did you put in that? Like what malts are in that? What's what hops are in? And then you just go, oh, it's a smash beer, it's like one hop, one malt. I mean, I know you said there was honey there or whatever, but I mean, it was just.
Yeah. The only reason that my Galaxy was originally going to be a smash, and then I'm like, well, I have an extra pound of honey. Fuck it, I'll just put it in.
Right. So I mean, it's those are the best, I think, those beers, because like people think that it must be like how would you replicate this? It's probably like 8 different malts or something.
Yeah.
Nope, it's just one malt.
Yeah.
No. So yeah, those are definitely my favorite personally.
Yeah. I'd second that for sure.
So what are you guys gonna try to like market after Bronin? Like what's your next beer that's gonna come out?
Have we made a decision yet, dude?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to probably say like a saison. I think we kind of I think that's what we're
spending a lot of time on that right now.
For us, I think there's other factors at play for us, based on the fact that we can, we brew once every 2 weeks and all that. Like there's certain beers we'd like to make, but maybe like again, getting a certain ingredient might not be practical long term, or was one beer like there's other styles maybe we'd like to make, but they take longer because they require more aging time, or I think you're kind of limited sometimes when you do a contract brew, just in terms of time and space, I think, fermenter wise. So
what do you guys do at home? You do test batch at home, scale up at the college, pretty much? Is that what you do? Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're when you're contract brewing, you're working within certain confines, and again, we take that as a challenge. So how do we take these parameters and make something cool still, instead of just trying to make whatever you want, like,
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of beers we just go, oh, we'd love to just make A, B, or C next, in the fall, but it might not be practical for us to do. So I think with the saison, if that is what we release, I don't know. I like the idea that the fermentation just kind of you let it go, and hop wise, it doesn't really require that you use anything way out there that's difficult to get. I mean, you can really let the yeast be the star there. Yeah, for us, it seems like a bit easier one to make, I guess, than Bronan technically, but still really popular.
I think I personally myself, me and Joe talked about this on a previous show. I think like yeast-driven beers, or more particularly Belgian beers, are going to be the next big thing. Not that they weren't big things before, but shit's cyclical. You know what I mean? And it's getting to the point where like everybody's just freaking out over hops so much that something else has to kind of come around. And a lot of people, like you were saying earlier, you got in through the Belgian door, and you're like, most people do that. Actually,
Yeah.
most people I meet came in through the hop door, because that's been pretty much a big thing for about 10 years going now. But if you've gotten a beer
I
about
was one of those people.
if you gotten a beer 15, 20 years ago, it was Belgians or bust. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
So I there's a lot of people, like, if I give them a Belgian based beer or something like that, and they're like, they're confused. They're like, wait, I get flavor from malt and hops, or malt and yeast and not hops. Like, they're kind of confused at the concept. So I think it's going to be the next, not big thing, but I think it's going to be the next wave. It'd be like, okay, everybody dipping into these yeasts and getting different flavors, because then you're talking about, Belgian yeast or Brett or whatever. You can derive these more different flavors other than just your, East, West, pine, tropical fruit, stone fruit, whatever the fuck you want to call it, hop shit. It's just going to be, not that it's shit, but like just a whole different angle. And I think that's going to be, in my brain, the next big thing.
Yeah, I think we would gladly welcome that and accept that challenge. We think those beers are awesome. So, yeast are super important, man. If you take care of them, they'll take care of you. How about that?
Yeah. And this is my own little conspiracy theory, going like a little tinfoil helmet shit. But like I'm a big proponent. I believe hop forward beers became popular because they were forced down people's throats. Not that they're not good. I do enjoy them. I'm drinking one right now. But I think from brew to drink, there's much less time involved than a Belgian beer when you're talking about a yeast-driven beer. So I think there was a little bit of push for, I won't even say big companies like macro, but I'm saying smaller breweries definitely push the IPA, the fresh, the quick beer stuff for turnover reasons. So that's why it's like, now since the industry is so big and those breweries can handle some time, that's why I think that's, again, going to be the next thing. Again, that's me going all wackadoo, fucking kooky madookie, fucking conspiracy theory guy, but anyway.
Yeah, you know what, I think the point that's really
I think
important.
with the yeast-driven beer.
Go ahead, dude.
I think with the yeast, I don't know. Can you see me still? I can't. Okay,
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah.
I think with the yeast-driven beers too, like, I guess just because hops are becoming so difficult to get at times, some brewers are just saying, you know what, we're going to go a different avenue. Because the yeast, there's not like any yeast that's not going to be available to you. It doesn't have the same. You never call up, a yeast producer and say, hey, can I get this yeast? And they say, oh no, sorry man, we're sold out for 2 years.
Well, or you can, in a world, you can actually cultivate your own yeast and really cut out the fucking middleman if you wanted to. You know.
Right.
And you can almost like some of these breweries, they keep reusing the same yeast over and over again, and they kind of develop their own strain, which some of these yeast producers will bank and produce for them. And then if you can kind of create your own like unique house strain, you've got something that's so not really too easy to replicate. And it didn't cost you an arm and a leg either.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. In a world, you could actually house all your yeast in a box. Sorry.
Yeah. So that's what I think. With some of these hops being really difficult to get, that's you're stuck. If you can't get them, you can't get them. Whereas with the yeast-driven beers, you can, that's more allows you to be creative, like with your fermentations and everything, and to get the result that you want. And like I said, most yeast that you want to get are going to be available to you. But you just got to order them, and a week later you got it. I think I personally think that's one of the reasons you're seeing that change as well. I think is because there's just so many breweries who want, hop A, B, or C, and they can't get them. So you have to come up with something.
Yeah. What are you gonna do, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, boys. I hate to cut this short, but I've got to dip for a barbecue and drink some beers. So,
Take care, man.
do you guys do you have any more questions? Like,
No, I think let's just wrap up real quick, and then we're get everybody on their way.
yeah, cool, man.
Well, I mean, you can take off right now, man. I mean, we can keep talking. It's not like you have to.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
Get to your barbecue, drink some beers.
All right,
You gotta prioritize, baby.
All right, Joe, Maddie.
Cheers, man.
Really appreciate it, man. We gotta have some beers. So maybe, Joe, once you're wrapped up in school, man, invite us down. We'll rip up where you're at.
Yeah, all right, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I look forward to it.
All right.
Take care,
Awesome.
boys. Thank you.
Take
See you,
care.
Rob.
Cheers.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Guys, I think I'm off to.
Yeah,
I don't actually have a barbecue to go to, unfortunately, but
You have a boil
the
to get
beer that
to.
I'm making.
So,
I've
real
let it
quick,
go
let's
10 minutes past my addition, but fortunately, there's no bittering hops at the start. It's all just hops at the end. So
all right.
an extra 10 minutes, it'll just be a touch stronger.
So real quick though, where can we find, like, social media wise, where can we find High Road?
I'm trying to remember. Rob takes care of a lot of those things. I think it's at High Road Brews, but it's HIGHRD Brews rather than the full road, word road.
Okay.
So HIGHRD Brews. And then Facebook. It should just be facebook.com/High Road Brewing. And we have a website, but it hasn't. It's just sort of under construction, and that's just highroadbrewing.com.
Yeah,
That's it.
awesome, man. I'm super appreciative of you guys coming on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate having us. For sure.
Yeah, it was a good time. So have fun with that boil,
Okay, guys.
and knock yourself out, man. Thank you very much.
Take care. Thank you.
See you on Wednesday, Kurt.
Yeah. I don't know how to get out of here. There we go.
You're stuck forever. Cheers.
Computers are not my thing.
Yeah.
See you guys.
See ya.
See ya.
So Joseph, yeah, that was good. That was a good deal, man. Those guys are cool.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
was. Yeah.
And how do you know them? How do you know the guys from High Road?
Rob works in the brewery as, I think he's head brewer. He's also a teacher. I think he is now a full-time teacher. And Kurt came in. I think since Rob's going to full-time teaching, I think Kurt is taking over what was Rob's position in the brewery. But Kurt also teaches one class. He kind of took over a class for a different teacher because we have crazy compressed schedule over the summer that I could rant for the next hour about, but I'm not going to. So Kurt took over for another guy who had a lot of shit on his plate, and yeah, so that's how I've known Rob obviously way longer because Rob's been there basically since I started in the program.
Okay.
And yeah.
No, it was a good one, man. Yeah, definitely reach out to those guys. Get them down here after you're out of school, and we'll do a night. We'll go around. We'll go to Breaker. We'll go to that the brewery you went to, Third Rail. We'll do a bunch of stuff. We'll do like a little brewery day where we kind of skirt around and just hang out and get shitty and stuff.
Sounds like a plan.
Nice. So yeah, let's see. You got any kind of tidbits or information, like introductory shit, the shit we usually do at the beginning, like any news or any interactions that you'd like to bring up?
I don't think so.
I
I have a couple reviews that I got to write up and actually post, as I've done nothing. Amanda actually just wrote something, so there's a new review on the website for Kullenbacher Eisbach from Amanda.
Kullenbacher Eisbach. Yeah, my buddy, my beer mentor or whatever you want to call, was up, and this guy who gave me all the Hardys, and
yeah. Which sounds really dirty if you don't know what we're talking about.
He gave me all the Hardys, I got to take penicillin for a week.
Nope.
He one of the beers he's auctioning off is actually a Kullenbacher. I don't know what year it is actually. I do. I can look up the picture. I think it might be 1996. Kullenbacher Double Eisbach, which is the Kullenbacher Eisbach, and I think it was like 24% or something like
you
that.
sent me that. You sent me
The
that
picture?
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, how fucking
insane.
crazy is that? Yeah, 24% Kullenbacher Eisbach. So it's basically probably a doubled Eisbach, I would assume, because I think it's like 12% normally.
Yeah, I don't.
1996. I want
Jesus.
that beer. I want that beer. I want to rub that beer all over my balls. So it's fucking Jesus Christ. Anyway, news. Wheaties is making a beer. You see that shit?
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, Wheaties, like
Wheaties,
the food company, like the company. I don't know if it's fucking whoever makes Wheaties is making a fucking beer called Wheaties in conjunction with a brewery. I believe in Minnesota. Yeah, it's a wheat beer. Go figure.
I would have thought it was a barley wine.
Yeah. So we'll see what the fuck happens with that. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it, man. Really not much else going on. Yeah. So there you go. Another good showdown. Another brewery profile. I like this shit. I like talking to brewers. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was such a different with Rob and Kurt. It's such a different. I think at least such a different outlook from Breaker. These guys went to school for brewing and then worked in breweries instead of coming completely from the homebrew side of things. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's always neat to see that comparison. That
different angle, yeah. I'll definitely have to line some more up. I'll have to reach out to somebody, see if we can get somebody on. Yeah. So we'll see. So there you go. Another Love Beer Radio in the books. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed this show. If you caught the show or didn't catch the show, which means if I'm talking to you right now and you didn't catch the show, you don't hear me. There's a tree falling in the woods. You hear it. I don't fucking know. Anyway, if you'd like to listen to this in podcast form, you can check us out on iTunes and Stitcher, Love Beer Radio. If you want to check me and Joseph out on beer review front, you check all my shit, massive beer reviews, massive beers on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped. How about you, Joe?
You check me out at nepabeerreviews.squarespace.com. Also Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at nepabeerreviews.
There you go. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully join us next week if you'd like to be a panel member, because we'll probably go back to the regular format at least for a couple weeks till we get somebody else involved. If you'd like to be a panel member, sit and drink some beers with us and chat it up. Get a hold of me or Joe at lovebeerradio@gmail.com and let us know. Try to get it done by midweek, and we'll have you on and talk some beer and then have a good time. So yeah, there you go.
Email for me would be nepabeerreviews@gmail.com. I have that straight to my phone. I don't have Love Beer Radio on my phone.
Why not?
So, I don't know. I didn't put it on there.
No, see, Joe sucks. Anyway.
I do.
Anyway, well, I suck too, so it's equal sucking. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully you tune in next week, and cheers.